Rad.
And what's interesting is for the first 100 to 150 years, the church didn't meet in buildings. They were home churches.
What happens when you still have the wildly talented guy leading the Bible study that everybody wants to hear his opinion? And I don't think it's big or small, it's good or bad.
Yep.
I think in there it's, and the thing that I come down to is, man, I know and live life with lots and lots and lots of pastors. 99% of them.
Ruslan.
When it comes to pastors and ministry in general, I think most people don't have the slightest clue of what it takes and how hard it is.
100%.
Physically, mentally, spiritually. And then when pastors are compensated nicely, which I think they should be, I think then people feel away, and it's like you have not the slightest clue of what a pastor goes through on the day-to-day basis. Can you give us some of just that backstory of like just the pressures of like one kind of some of the things you've experienced in ministry, and then maybe some of the stuff you're going through in your current role as a pastor at a mega church?
Yeah, man. Again, no matter what you do, you don't make enough money for some people. You make too much money for other people. And you have this really weird role that nobody really understands. They see you one day out of the week and assume that 35-minute message, that's the totality of your job. And the thing that I come down to is, man, I know and live life with lots and lots and lots of pastors. 99% of them are the most amazing people that I've ever met that are working extra jobs to be able to pay the bills, that are trying to do everything they can to love and shepherd the congregation that God has given them, to love and lead their families really well. Most of them are trying to figure it out and just go, man, I feel inadequate to do this. I don't know, how best to do this. I don't know what decisions to make, because you've got to be a combination of a great communicator. You've got to be a visionary. You've got to be able to lead your staff. You've got to make strategic decisions. And there's almost this culture that's been created because of, I think, of a lot of different factors that almost feels like you also have to do this alone. Just go into your private prayer closet, come out, be brilliant, give us your messages.
Give us your weekly TED Talk.
That's right. Just wow us, man. We just want to be around God's anointed. And the truth is there are a handful of those guys in the country that are just bonkers, man. But most of the pastors that I know, people, if they got to spend a week with them and walk around and just see how they live their life, they'd go, man, these are really good dudes that are trying, guys and girls that are trying to do their best to love the people that God has put in front of them. And so all these wild, outlandish stories and people paint with these broad strokes, I'm like, it's because you don't know these people, right? And most of them are doing everything they can to try to just get through. Are there some bad apples in it? Yes. It's like every other profession out there. There's always going to be bad apples. But most of them are incredibly faithful people that have sacrificed a lot to be here, that could go probably make a lot more money in other industries, that could go out and, do other stuff. But God has called them to this vocation. And it's one of those things, man, where it's like when you've been called to ministry, it's the most amazing and at times frustrating thing in the world.
Hey, you may not know I make music, but I have a brand new song that just came out. Here's a quick preview.
I went from being a porn addict to sharing the gospel with a porn actress who was criticized for being low status by the same OnlyFans who treat us so lavish. I'm confused.
I swear y'all thought he did doing podcasts, hot takes. He still can rap.
Now, this is my first song that I've released in over a year, so I need you to go to Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you consume music and stream Too Soon right now. Add it to your favorite playlist, share it with a friend. So hit the link in the description or go to RuslanToTheMoon.com to stream Too Soon now. I'll see you over there.
Oh, they got me with the dramatics, you know.
And to be clear, specifically with you, like you were a top sales guy just recently, and you were making double, right? Double than what you were making as a pastor when you were
probably
doing
3 or 4 times.
Three or four times what you're making as a pastor now. So because it's such a unicorn of a skill set, like to be able to communicate, to be able to teach, to be able to persuade, to be able to know a little bit of tech, to be able to lead and manage people, it's such a unicorn of a skill set. So I've always been very adamant and even been intentionally platforming more pastors and showing more pastors so that like, hey, if they're in Arizona, they can go check you out, or they can go check out Trey Van Camp, right? We talk about the movement here a lot, Rhythm Church here a lot, right? So people can get plugged into churches because I think it's super important. I think there's a misconception that we're kind of touching on it earlier, right? Like some people were like, the church just has to feed the widow and the orphan, right? And I'm going through this series on church history, which is actually really, really, really cool. I'm going to send you the link. Pastor Mike Winger shared it. I know my brother Truther has seen it. And I'm in the early church phase. So this is right after the apostolic church.
Rad.
And what's interesting is for the first 100 to 150 years, the church didn't meet in buildings. They were home churches, right? And so when you hear about feeding the widow and the orphan, I'm not sure that was necessarily coming from like a local ecclesia standpoint, as much as that was coming from people pulling their resources in the local ecclesia to take care of people, right, and to do good and to do charity. But the moment they could meet in local in buildings, they did.
Yeah.
And that was until I believe about the year 150-ish. And then at the time, Christianity was still like only 2 or 3% of Rome. And then I think at the year 300, it was like 10%. And then after Constantine, it was like 50%. And so we see this pattern within church history where they didn't necessarily take up like tithes and offerings the way we do, right? But when they could meet in buildings, they met in buildings immediately. So I say all that to say, like, it's not a dichotomy of like small church, big church, right? Like give all the money to the poor, give no money to the poor. Like I think it's and both. You know, one of the things Trizzle was just on, and I showed you the video we got with Trizzle that's going viral on Instagram right now. Yeah. And I got a clip coming out with him about how his church, I forgot what they're called, but they're in Orange County, and he was talking about how they have a huge initiative to get members to foster. And so they have been fostering heavy, and a lot of families do that. And so they have I believe a 1-year-old now that's been with them since he was like 2 weeks. He was like abandoned, and they took him in, you know? And so like, I think that sort of stuff isn't necessarily like, does the church have an orphanage in the back? You know what I mean? But like, is the church equipping people to be the hands and feet of Jesus?
Yeah. No, 100%, man. And I think that's, again, you look at Francis Chan is walking through a lot of this right now, right? You look at a guy that's wildly talented and grew this massive thing, and then really started to feel like, oh, this big church thing is bad and we should go back to small church. Well, the issue he's running into now is, okay, you do them in homes. Well, what happens when you still have the wildly talented guy leading the Bible study that everybody wants to hear his opinion and how he breaks it down and his, commentary. And all
Some
that
people
stuff.
just got a different grace over their life, man.
Dude, and so what they started to do, though, I don't know if you've seen this, but they have all these home churches and house church leaders and all this stuff. But everybody still is like, well, we want to do at least once a month gatherings, with Francis, and we do some kind of like collective worship experience. And so now they're back getting these big buildings because they're outgrowing all of this stuff. And so there's a part of it where I'm like, man, I don't think it's big or small, that's good or bad. I think in there, it's how do we make it healthy? I think healthy is the goal, healthy is the thing. And I think those stories, like your buddy's church you're talking about, those are the stories most people don't hear. Like Christians give more money to nonprofits than anybody else. They adopt more children than anybody else. Our church, same thing. Arizona, our foster care system is an absolute nightmare. 5 or 6 years ago, our church said, hey, we can make a difference. We have the resources. We have the amount of people. Let's get together the local experts and let's go after this thing. And so we now foster inside of our church. Families foster hundreds of these kids. We do an initiative every year that goes, hey, everybody in this church can support a foster kid. Doesn't mean they don't have to live with you. If you can't foster them in your home, then you can support the parents that do and come do a babysitting thing to where these parents can have a night out. And if you can't do that, you can give some money, right? And so we do, and we rally around the foster kids in our community. And I think those stories aren't told because they're not sexy. They're not, they don't sell headlines. It's just, oh yeah, the local church takes care of the foster kids. Awesome.
Right. Yeah, because if it bleeds, it leads. And so the most
100%.
sensational, wild, over-the-top stories are going to be the ones that lead and get people to clip. Hey, this clip is from our daily after-party stream. If you enjoyed it, consider signing up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month, where you get access to the replays of our daily after-party streams, as well as the uncut extended versions of our podcast, Discord access that's private, and a discount code for our merch store, only $5 a month. And ultimately, it's the best way to help us contextualize the gospel of Jesus using media, podcasting, and of course, YouTube. The link for that is in the description or in the pinned comment. The perks are amazing. You should get on there. It's only $5 a month. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.